if you can't tell from the title of this video, I'm going to talk about the first 20 books I want to read in 2020, excluding Dragon World, which I mentioned in my favorite books of 2019. I want to read this in 2019, Dragon World. But if I don't, I will read that first thing in 2020. So these are the 20 books other than Dragon World that I want to read in 2020 because I'm hoping to get that one in this year. So, Brightly Burning by Alexa Dunn. She has helped me a lot with navigating the traditional publishing world and giving useful information to aspiring novelists, authors. I'm a writer, but I'm not a published author. So aspiring authors on navigating traditional publishing that I have not been able to find in very many locations, and so I appreciate her for that. So I'm going to read Brightly Burning. I don't typically like YA sci-fi, and I also think Brightly Burning is going to be more romance heavy than I usually like, but I want to support Alexa because she's done a lot for the writing community. So I'm going to read Brightly Burning. And it sounds interesting anyway, and Jane Eyre is one of my favorite novels, so like might be that YA sci-fi romance heavy book that changes my mind about all of those things. I also want to read Girls of Paper and Fire because it's got lesbians in it, and that's why. Then I'm gonna read A Curse So Dark and Lonely, not because I give a rat's ass about Beauty and the Beast retellings, but because disability rep is super, super important to me, and it is the first book I have ever seen, aside from my own, which is not yet published, to have a physically disabled protagonist in a young adult fantasy novel. The protagonist of A Curse So Dark and Lonely has cerebral palsy, and that's really fucking important to me, and I think I'm gonna cry my little eyes out, like ugly cry, at this book because of it, because we don't have enough disability rep in young adult fantasy. And I am going to read this book, and I'll probably rate it 5 stars no matter what because it has disability rep, and that means a lot to me. So we'll see how I feel about that book because, like I said, I don't give a rat's ass about fairy tale retellings, but I do care about disability rep. Then I'm going to hopefully get to, I'm saying hopefully, like I'm going to read these 20 books because I don't think I read all 19 of the books I wanted to read in 2019, and I'm going to read these 20 books. The next one, probably not in this order, but I'm going to read Caraval. I don't know what order these 20 books are going to come in. I bought Caraval, as you can see, because it was on sale with the Barnes & Noble summer sale, and then I never picked it up even though it sounds interesting to me, so we're going to pick it up. This is where I have all my notes. This is my bullet journal. So we're going to pick up Caraval, and hopefully I'll love it. And then I'm going to read right next to it, The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I always want to call it The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hugo because of the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Very confusing. But I have The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which I want to read. Sounds fascinating. But again, like there just was not time in 2019 for me to pick it up because there were other books that just called to me more, but I'm trying to do more reading in 2020 to have a strong start to the next decade. So, that one on the list. Then I'm going to read Furyborn because guess who downloaded that ebook, like that audiobook? I bought that audiobook over 2 years ago, like, or whenever Furyborn came out. Like, I bought that audiobook on Audible like the second it came out because I was so interested, and then I never listened to it, and I don't know why. So I'm gonna read Furyborn this coming year. I'm going to do it. It's gonna be read. Then I want to read Aurora Rising because I've never read anything by Jay Kristoff, and the cover of Aurora Rising looks beautiful. Hello? I'm gonna read this book. I don't usually love sci-fi, but I'm gonna try it anyway. I am trying to love more sci-fi because Starsight proved me wrong, and Skyward. These two, especially Starsight, it's a lot more like sci-fi, proved me wrong about how much I can like sci-fi if it's done well. So Aurora Rising, though I did see somewhere someone said it was like plagiarized, And I want to know more about that, like plagiarized from who, because I could not find anything online when I did my own research. So if you know what that person was talking about, please share that information with me. Then I'm going to read the 8th book I want to read in 2020 is Circe by Madeline Miller. This is another book that I just told myself I would read pretty much right when it came out, and then I didn't. And I don't know why. I've been wanting to read this book for over a year. I don't know why I do this to myself. But like, if it's not new and shiny and right in front of my face, sometimes it just falls through the cracks, and that's Circe. But I will read you Circe in 2020. The 9th book I'm going to read is Arrows of the Queen, which I bought at a used book sale because my friend recommended Mercedes Lackey to me, and this was the only first in a series that the used bookstore had. Like, they had a lot of Mercedes Lackey, but they didn't have any firsts in a series other than Arrows of the Queen. They had Arrows of the Queen. So I hope this is a good place to start with Mercedes Lackey, and if it's not, please tell me that it's not before I start this and then don't like it and then write off Mercedes Lackey. Like, please. Please, I want to like her. My friend likes her so much. So this is where I'm starting, but tell me if I need to start somewhere else, and I will. I'm committed to reading something by Mercedes Lackey in 2020. The 10th book I want to read in 2020, so we're halfway there, is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. She's a Black female author in the adult fantasy sphere, and that was the big reason I wanted to read her in the first place. And then I heard a lot of really good reviews about The Fifth Season, and then it won the Hugo Award, I believe, and that just cemented this series in like, I have got to read this, so I'm going to. I've heard a lot of people really like it. Murphy talked really highly about it, and we have the same taste in books, more or less, when it comes to fantasy. So I think I'll like it, so I'm gonna read it. The first one, at least. Hopefully I'll get through the whole Broken Earth trilogy in 2020, but at least The Fifth Season I will read in 2020. 11 is another fantasy book that I am picking up because of Murphy, and also because Daniel Green has mentioned it, and that's The Lies of Locke. I've heard only good things about this book, and again, 2 booktubers who have very similar taste to me have talked about it highly, so I'm gonna read this book. Number 12, again in the same vein, like, I just watch a couple of booktubers who have the exact same bookish taste to me, and then when they read a book and rate it highly, I'm just like, okay, putting that on the TBR, and that was Eye of the World. So the first book in the Wheel of Time series. I bought this like 6 months ago, and then I didn't start it because I was kind of intimidated by it because it's chunky, and like, what am I even talking about? Like, hello? This is right here. What am I even talking about? I'm intimidated by how big it is. Like, come on. But I've also heard that people get kind of tired of, I don't even know who Randland is, but people talk about being tired of him after like 4 or 5 books. And there's like 15 in that series. We're gonna give it a shot anyway. Number 13 is another book that Murphy has talked highly about that I want to read, and also like the cover is really pretty, and that's one way to get me to buy your book. I haven't bought it yet, but I would love to buy an Unkindness of Magicians and read it. Right now it's a standalone, which I always love in a fantasy novel. There's not enough of those. So I'm gonna read Unkindness of Magicians. I really couldn't tell you that much about what it's about. Houseworth, maybe? That's something, I think. I don't know. All I know is that Murphy talked highly about it, and literally if she recommends a book, I'm going to read it because she is yet to disappoint me. So, the 14th book out of these 20 books that I want to read is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is a book that I heard very mixed reviews about when it came out, and so I completely wrote it off and was like, oh, I'm not gonna read that. And then I've heard nothing but good things about Wicked King and Queen of Nothing. Like, people have just been losing their dang minds over Queen of Nothing. And so I, thought to myself, do I need to read this trilogy? Like, am I missing out on something? So I'm gonna pick up Cruel Prince, and if I like it, even a little bit, even if it's just a 3-star book, I will continue on, because the general consensus seems to be that, like, they just get better. The Folk of Air trilogy just goes up. So as long as I don't hate The Cruel Prince, I will continue going with that series. The 15th book is Vicious by V.E. Schwab, because I loved A Darker Shade of Magic, didn't love A Gathering of Shadows, but I think I'll love A Conjuring of Light. And I've heard nothing but good things about Vicious. And it's a duology. That is an easy thing for me to get into. That's not a lot of commitment. And I've heard so many good things about it. I'm gonna read Vicious. I really have been wanting to read it for a long time. So I'm gonna read Vicious. 16 is one that I feel like I heard a lot about right when it came out, and then it kind of fell off the face of the earth, and that is Three Dark Crowns. And I think the problem is that it was marketed wrong, as like a fast-paced, action-packed young adult fantasy, and then everybody who read it was like, this is slow-paced and political. And I think that's a failing of the marketing as opposed to any fault of the book. So I want to give it a try, because now I know going into it that it's slower paced, and that's fine by me. I don't mind a slow paced book. So I'm going to read Three Dark Crowns with the realistic expectations of what that book is, and hopefully I will like it. The 17th book that I want to read out of 20 is Throne of Jade, which I definitely put on my 19 books to read in 2019, because in 2018 I read His Majesty's Dragon, the first book in the Temeraire series, and I loved it. I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars, because Temeraire is the cutest dragon on the face of the earth. And a historical fantasy where the only difference during the Napoleonic Wars is that there's a dragon-based air force is the best premise ever. And I've heard good things from my father about Throne of Jade. And so I don't know why I didn't pick it up, but there was just at no point in which I was like, this is what I want to read right now. So I didn't. But I am going to read it in 2020. I'm just going to pick it up because I know I'll enjoy it, and I don't know why I didn't pick it up in 2019. It's just crazy of me. Another V.E. Schwab book that I'm going to read is A Conjuring of Light. Because like I just said, I really liked A Darker Shade of Magic, and I think I'll like A Conjuring of Light. And I think it's just going to be, I'm going to pretend like A Darker Shade of Magic. No. A Gathering of Shadows. I mean, it's hard, okay? A Gathering of Shadows, I'm going to just like pretend like I like that one too, as long as I like A Conjuring of Light, which I really think I will. I really feel like it's going to have a solid ending to this series. People love it so much, it's gotta. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to tell myself it was fantastic no matter what, because I loved A Darker Shade of Magic so much. Alright, my camera died. But the 19th book I want to read in 2020 is Spin the Dawn. After I read Descendant of the Crane, I had a heyday in that author's Twitter, and she seems to be friends with the author who wrote Spin the Dawn, and praised it highly. And because I liked Descendant of the Crane, I trust her judgment. And then I read the summary of Spin the Dawn, and it's like a girl dresses up as a boy. She tries to pass as a boy to win the competition to become the imperial tailor, and so she has to make 3 dresses, one out of the sun, the moon, and the stars. Yeah, and that just sounds so unique, so fresh. I want to read that book. So I want to read that book in 2020. I think that sounds fascinating. So to me, sounds great. I'm going to read that book. So, and then the 20th book I'm going to read in 2020. I mentioned I was going to read this book in my favorite books of 2019, which is why I made it the last one, and that's Wise Man's Fear, which is the second book in the King Killer Chronicles. I read Name of the Wind in 2019 and I loved it, but then I saw mixed reviews about Wise Man's Fear. People said it was kind of meandering, and since it's only supposed to be a trilogy, I was kind of like, but I'm gonna read it anyway. I also put it off because the last book, I forget what it's supposed to be called, but Patrick Rothfuss has not published the last book yet, and it's been a very long time since he wrote Wise Man's Fear, and I was worried he would never write it, which is the same reason I will not start Game of Thrones, is because I will not start a series that may never be finished. But I saw an announcement somewhere that the last book in the Kingkiller Chronicles is supposed to come out in 2020. And I might just be getting my hopes up for nothing. And I'm going to read Wise Man's Fear because I just cannot hold myself back any longer from getting more from that world and about Kavoth and that magic system. So yeah, those are the 20 books I am most excited to read in 2020. I'm going to read more than 20 books in 2020, I hope. I've managed to read 50 this year. I'm hoping to read 60 next year because my master's degree made it hard for me to continue to love reading for a while, and so I've been trying to get back into my reading mojo. So 50 books might not seem like a lot to a lot of people, but it also seems like a whole ton to other people, and also I'm writing at the same time, so I have to split my time somehow, and I like to play video games and watch TV shows too, so yeah, those are 20 of the 20 books I'm going to read in 2020. Because I'm not going to pull another 2019 and not read all of the 19 books I said I was going to read in 2019. So, tell me some of the books you're excited to read in 2020. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.